Welcome, everybody. We'll get started in just a minute. Welcome. If you're just joining, you will be on mute, so feel free to find the Q&A section and place your questions there for individual speakers. We will get started shortly. All right, welcome to today's virtual conference, Be Ready to Scale Digital for Manufacturing 4.0 Through Challenging Times, brought to you by IoT World and sponsored by Hitachi Vantara. I'm Lucian Fagoros, the co-founder of IoT World, and on behalf of the guest speakers, my team and sponsor, Hitachi Vantara, thank you for joining. I'd like to remind you to post your question in the Q&A section as you have them, and you can address them to individual speaker, or to all speakers. You can also do it via the social channels, leveraging the hashtag IIoT World. As a reminder, we have a couple of special gifts for the attendees for this program. At the end of the program, one lucky winner will walk away with the book, The Art of Thinking Like a Data Scientist, from Hitachi Vantara's own Dean of Big Data, as also refers to Mr. Bill Schmarzo. Another special gift from our sponsor, worth over $20,000 for those of you that stick around until the end. And for those of you that may not be familiar with our digital media outlet, IoT World focuses on delivering daily intelligence on IoT, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, predictive analytics, cybersecurity, machine learning across multiple industries, including manufacturing. Over 300 industry experts create a culture of innovation by connecting the smarts, industrial technology, manufacturing, sensors, and CXO decision makers. Today, we have an exciting panel representing organizations including Toyota, Maple Leaf Foods, Hitachi Rail, and Hitachi Vantara. And now I'd like to introduce our guest MC, Ed Lane, the Senior Marketing Manager from Hitachi Vantara. Welcome, Ed, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lucian. We have a number of presenters today, so in the interest of time, each will be introduced in turn. Our first speaker today is Mr. Fabio Raffo. Mr. Raffo is an Associate Director for Industrial Software at Omdia. As an analyst, Fabio tracks the impact of digital trends and technologies associated with a fourth industrial revolution in manufacturing. A passionate subject matter, he brings over 15 years industry experience from IHS Markit and Siemens. Mr. Raffo, welcome.
Thank you, Ed. Happy to be here with such a great panel. Very good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, depending on the part of the world you are. I joined from Genoa in Italy, and I'm here to share an update on the current state of the manufacturing industry, how leaders are planning to address short-term challenges, and how they plan to navigate their business towards the new normal. I'm going to then talk about the role industrial IoT can play in the recovery of the manufacturing ecosystem and the most effective way to assess the real value of such solution. Finally, I'm going to share benchmark data for specific value opportunities, result of our research. But let me start introducing interesting data point measuring the impact of the COVID-19 outbreak on the industrial market. So the magnitude varies from sector to sector, some exception being e-commerce and life science, but overall, it is trending toward a global recession. Let's deep dive into industries. One of the most impacted is automotive. Due to lockdown and shelter-in-place order, most companies are still struggling in finding the best setup to protect their employees and return to operation. Across the 229 automotive plants in the European Union, the European Automaker Association reported 2.4 million production losses related to the outbreak, which corresponding to 15% of the total production in 2019. automakers already fighting with adaptation to industry megatrends like electrification have now to deal with a global demand shock. Metal industry is not that different. Key end market consuming metals such as the manufacturing of vehicles, machinery, and appliances impacted by the pandemic are reacting with cutting purchases faster than mills are cutting output. So the steel price in 2020 will drop to level not seen in a long time. The largest steel manufacturing producer, ArcelorMittal, reported a 23% contraction in revenues compared to the first quarter in 2019. If you look at the food and beverage industries, it was expected to be the winner in the short term, as the products were in higher demand than usual. In reality, there has been an increase in the off-trade channel, while the high margin on-trade channel, bar, restaurant, has been heavily impacted by the lockdown. So we see, for example, AB InBev, the world's largest brewer, reports that 1/3 drop in sales in April compared to 2019. Next, please. Okay, here a more detailed snapshot of the machinery production. Capital expenditure-oriented industries like this one are facing the immediate impact of COVID-19 pandemic. This comes at a time when the sector was already facing severe economic headwinds, with clear sign of a recession around the globe. Western Europe, who owns 1/6 of the world market, is forecasted in 2020 a 20% sales drop, while US and China, that together cover almost 50% of the market, are expected to report 12% contraction. How far and how long the recession will be is the question that we all have. Economists are trying to predict its shape. People talk about a V-shaped recovery, U-shape, an L-shaped recovery. What is clear is that this new normal requires changes, fast and deep. Next slide, please. Is there an easy way to foresee how the new normal will be after the pandemic? With shrinking CapEx budget and depressed demand level, speed and agility are becoming crucial for companies willing to emerge in the new normal. And these are typical characteristics achieved through the adoption of digital technologies. Can we then assume that COVID-19 pandemic could accelerate technology adoption? How can manufacturers in such a fluid environment compare their digital strategy with their peers? Let me share the Omdia perspective, starting from an intro of the new operational objectives. Next slide, please. Most organizations are developing business continuity plans in response of the current crisis. In parallel, they are looking at building a business that is as future-proof as possible. Our research revealed that the ability of manufacturers to quickly adapt and pivoting to new market conditions has a direct correlation with their previous investment in digital. A digital-driven strategy will not only increase resilience and support workers through the crisis, but will also help to accelerate business growth once the economy will start to recover. Let's have a look at the new operational objective we understood will drive decision in the new normal and the potential role of digital solution. First, cash crisis management. The COVID-19 crisis could push companies to insolvency as a consequence of revenue shortfall. Leaders are targeting immediate dramatic action to manage their cash. As an example, we have seen in the automotive sector, FCA finds an agreement with the Italian government for a new credit line of 6.3 billion euro to support Italian manufacturing facilities. How digital can support manufacturers to minimize liquidity challenges in addition to financial countermeasure? So leveraging industrial IoT technologies, company can gain a real-time visibility on production information and inventory level for a rapid adaptation to changes in demand, increasing then cash flows from operating activities. Second, supply chain resilience. The current situation spotlights vulnerabilities of the global supply chain. So it is expected an introduction of new model structure around nearshoring and shorter and flexible regional supply chain, closer to key end user. Here again, industrial IoT solution can play a key role in a realistic assessment of scenarios, looking at the impact of make or buy decision, or in maintaining the best supplier list according to the current market needs. Third objective is the review of the labor plan. Company needs to recover their workforce confidence to ensure continuity over time. Manufacturer must maintain a worker-first mindset while preparing the new labor plan. Digital solutions like computer vision and remote assistance orchestrated by an IoT solution can improve worker safety by enforcing social distance and ensuring the usage, for example, of PPEs, or enable real-time monitoring of manufacturing conditions. Next slide, please. So the potential to support operating and strategic objectives leveraging IoT is huge, but we should not forget the historical challenges. First, the lack of business buy-in. The introduction of IoT solution not strategically positioned in line with the company business plan is significantly less likely to succeed. Second, slow approval process. Due to the uncertainty of how a proof of concept can scale through the entire organization, most leaders are forced to undergo scrutiny of various approval boards that could stop the initiative at any point. Third, lack of continuous board support. Introducing IoT solution in the first year can be extremely disappointing. The long time scale of such project may result in enterprise believing too early that their project has failed to deliver benefit. Fourth, the do-it-yourself approach. Most of the IoT platforms are presented as the way to connect manufacturing operation data and back-office data in a single system. But the system itself is not designed with any specific manufacturing practice applicable to the customer case. As a result, platforms are often flagged as solution without problems. Such a perception leads some manager to opt for resource-intensive, do-it-yourself industrial IoT initiative. Even if they could be internally promoted as the best way to drive such uncertainty, this project can have long-standing impact on cost, time, people, but also on the ability to scale. This is not the first time that manufacturers started investing outside their core business to fill the gap between the value proposition of the technology vendor and the willingness to have a tailored solution. If you remember, it happened already in the past with machine builder when they try to build their own controller board or HMIs. Then, fifth point, the legacy infrastructure. 80% of the shop floor are still leveraging paper, office tool like Microsoft Excel or homegrown solution. Some systems are just difficult to replace, especially the ones that handle vital manufacturing process within an organization. Sixth, last point, cybersecurity not a priority. Industrial IoT proof of concept, they start in a sandbox with a focus on data visibility, and most of the time they miss the needed level of protection, opening an unprepared operational technology domain to IT risks. Next slide, please. So despite the recession and the challenges, we already observed China and South Korea organizations keep investing in digital, but the pressure to show positive financial outcomes is increasing. So a recurring question to be answered, what is the real value of an industrial IoT solution? Executives struggle with the assessment of the financial impact of the investment. At Omdia, we believe it is key the adoption of an agile business case to codify and maintain the value thread across the entire life cycle of the industrial IoT initiative. The pace of change in market conditions has never been that fast, so the ability to keep reiterate the value over time, capture changes in the key driver, is expected to increase the resilience and the outcomes delivered by the solution. So let me introduce now 4 key drivers that must be considered to qualify an agile business case. First, corporate goals. Investment in digital initiative must support the mission of the company, and it must be aligned with the mid to long-term strategic goals. Second, operational objectives. Specific opportunities must have a strong correlation with more concrete operational challenges. The weight of this correlation is important to clarify the priority. Third, the geopolitical context. Detailed opportunities must be assessed according to the local geopolitical condition at every manufacturing site. This is going to be an additional factor to consider when planning the deployment of the solution. Fourth, the existing tech subsystem. The potential benefit from IoT must be reevaluated according to the digital maturity of the different manufacturing sites and the estimated positive impact of the technology proposed by the solution partner. Only continuous assessment of this for driver can guarantee an up-to-date business case. So outcomes from this live multidimensional cost-benefit analysis can be used as a baseline to monitor the progress and review the impact of changes as the company progresses with the deployment. Next slide, please. A well-executed process enables manufacturer to increase value and reduce risk. We suggest the following 4 steps. The team, and as a team I mean the extended one including business partner, must first reach a common understanding of what the business is trying to achieve at high level. As a next step, the team can then look for opportunities to support customer success. For each opportunity, there must be a rationale and parameters that can be estimated or measured to quantify the value of the opportunity and associated cost. Once there is a common understanding of the business context and the potential value, the team can then decide which capabilities are the most important and according to the availability of required resources, geopolitical condition, agree to an execution plan. An iterative approach allows for business cases to be developed with less information. Benefit can be refined and qualified over time and added to the business case that in turn allow for the discovery of more cost and benefit, improving the quality and completeness. Next, please. I would like now to close with benchmarking data from our continuous monitoring of successful industrial IoT implementation. If you look at the benefit from a value chain perspective, we can see them span across the product and production life cycle. Here, a list of the most relevant ones. Monitor critical asset health to increase uptime and their lifetime by leveraging predictive and prescriptive machine learning AI algorithms. Improve worker efficiency by associating manufacturing practices to data from machine, barcode reader, wearables. Increase early recognition of safety risk, leveraging machine vision information analysis. Faster non-conformance sentencing, leveraging reliable data integration between failure mode analysis, SPCs, and corrective action. Reduce energy consumption by a real-time control of energy usage during idle times. And finally, field services cost reduction by leveraging data-driven remote assistance. Here, you can see average results from real scenarios across discrete sector. As you can see, the potential impact of IoT across all disciplines is significant. Companies who had the ability to link such a result to a broader strategy recognize the key contribution of industrial IoT solution in fulfilling the company purpose over and above the bottom line numbers. Thanks for listening. And if you have any questions, just drop a line in the Q&A. Let me pass back to Ed.
Thank you, Fabio. If anyone has questions for Mr. Raffo, please, or for anyone at any time during today's sessions, please use the Q&A link at the bottom of your screen. Next up, we have Mr. James Destro. Mr. Destro leads the manufacturing practice at Hitachi Vantara. His practice focuses on delivering high-value outcomes to Hitachi's manufacturing customers globally. This is done through deep domain consulting and digital solutions that leverage advanced analytics. Mr. Destro's background includes more than 20 years of industrial digital solutions leadership in the manufacturing, oil and gas, chemicals, and aviation industries. Mr. Destro, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Ed. This is great, and I'm very excited to be here. And thank you to IIoT World for putting together such a great event for us today. And thank you, Fabio, for such a great presentation around the state of the industry today, as well as some of the challenges. I have the pleasure of introducing and actually launching our manufacturing practice and introducing the value that Hitachi can bring to manufacturing customers. So let's start with an overview of who is Hitachi, what is our heritage, and what makes us such a great partner for your success in these challenges and the challenging times today. Hitachi has a long heritage and background in operations technologies. We are a long-term manufacturer with over 110 years of manufacturing and industrial innovation of creating heavy machines, heavy industrial equipment, and driving what we call social innovation, which is the improvement of society through changes and innovation technology. We also have a long background in IT and our IT heritage. For over 60 years, we've brought entire new solutions and capabilities around big data analytics, IT systems, artificial intelligence, and in the new generation of cloud technologies through advanced communication techniques. Together, when we bring those two heritages, we can bring IoT solutions and the combined experience that's needed to drive innovation and operationalization of these solutions across the board. But I want to make this session interactive. I want to include you in the process of how we start to communicate and how we tailor the experience for you. So can I please move forward with our first question for the audience? And this question is, from your manufacturing organization's perspective, what are the top current critical issues limiting value creation in the digital industrial transformation journey? You should see a poll that pops up in front of you, and these are something for you to select. Please start to submit your answers, and we'll give folks a couple of seconds here to actually answer this question, and then we can start to talk about what are some of the immediate opportunities that we see today. All right. Lucy and I assume we've got some good results in. Can we go ahead and see the results of those?
Perfect. Here we go.
All right. So we have really good participation. Thank you for all of your answers. As you can see, the questions are really geared across the board. The highest one is operational innovation budget. And in today's world, this is a challenging opportunity for folks as we start to see, the impacts of COVID and the situation there. As you go towards trying to drive innovation and budget, the key parts of that are to understand the outcomes and to align executives towards the challenges and the opportunity that's faced as you introduce these kinds of solutions. The second one up there was production scheduling, quality, and execution scale. Another one that's being driven today is around how are we going to be agile and nimble in today's world, in today's economy, as we start to see supply chain resilience, which is actually the third one up there, start to impact. All of the supply chains have come down. We started to see the fragility in that environment. And as we come back up online, we're going to start to see some challenges there. We as Hitachi have seen those inside of our own factories and our own manufacturing environments, and this lines up very well with those. So let's go to the next slide, please. In today's world, as Fabio talked about, there's many influences that are driving manufacturing decisions. These are coming from all over in terms of pressures that we are felt. And this overall operational budget, as we've just learned about, which is driving a lot of the decisions today, is being influenced and actually pressured from many different directions. And you can see those here. But we do want to make sure that we understand that manufacturing contributes a very large portion of the GDP, and the revival of that is key in the scenario here where we're working with in the COVID-19 days today. On the left-hand side, you can actually see what some of those pressures are. Commoditization, you heard about that in the metals industry from Fabio. He's driving down and he's seeing the prices starting to come down to the lowest of the lows that they've been there. We're obviously set with growth targets, but we're being impacted by supply chain pressures, other manufacturing, and a multi-node supply chain in this situation is very hard to deal with, and the flexibility that we're going to need to drive in new innovation, new kinds of capabilities are all part of the new normal. Next slide, please. From Hitachi's perspective, we want to try to put together these solutions in a very easy to consume way, but also try to drive innovation across the board. And we do that across these 5 main pillars that you see on the screen right now. The first one of those is around enabling the digital experiences. This is where you're going to get customer intimacy. From a manufacturing perspective, you want to make sure that you're looking from the customer's point of view and driving innovation that will continue to keep you relevant in today's experiences. These include partners, as well as making sure that employees, which are your #1 resource here in driving out the overall efficiency, are kept in mind in terms of how we can drive new normal and the new efficiencies. Overall operations excellence is the second pillar. This includes things like assets and operational efficiency, where we're trying to drive outcomes in the form of reliability, availability, overall equipment effectiveness, and reduction in terms of downtime and reduction in terms of inefficient operation. We're also driving predictive quality, and this is where we're trying to drive outcomes that understand the influences and the changes that we make to the production environment that would have a downstream impact to quality. And overall, we can reduce the scrap and the rework that's required in the manufacturing process. This is all enabled by digital twins of the assets, digital twins of the operations, and digital twins of the products or the goods that we're trying to create. That's all great in a foundation from an IoT or the OT perspective of what we're trying to do on the operation side. But as we look towards how do we modernize and include the IT side of the equation, we have to do what's called modernizing our digital core. These are the foundation of the IT systems that drive the overall ordering process, the management of our ERPs that are driving overall changes to what we can do end to end. And Hitachi offers full transformations for those to be more nimble, more agile, and that's in our collaboration with many of the global ERP vendors. We have edge to cloud technology to allow for the transformation, whether that be an on-prem solution that we need to do very close to the asset, all the way through a global scale and global deployment and rollout, where we can pull information from the various assets and give visibility across for overall ability for transformation and moving data and moving the manufacturing capacity across the various factories. A new one for us is what we call the digital thread. And this is the enablement from the engineering and design process through manufacturing, incorporation of the value chain, all the way through when your asset or good is being used by your customer, and the feedback of all of that information back into the engineering and manufacturing process to drive overall better products and increased efficiency. The fourth pillar is around becoming data-driven. This is critical in these times where we need to see, or we're currently seeing data silos, data puddles, if you will, out there. And we need to bring all of that information together in integrated IoT solutions and drive advanced analytics. Only when this data is brought together and contextualized in the form that an expert can understand, can we truly drive operational efficiency. Supply chain optimization is one of those where you need to be looking across many different data sources and seeing the challenges that it may provide by the change of orders, the change of stock, the downtime of particular machinery. Those all drive optimization and influence to how the supply chain needs to interact. The last is to continue innovation as we drive what's called a digital center of excellence and change management to continuously drive improvements in the digital acceleration. Each one of these leads to a holistic digital strategy, and together these offer everything that we can do from a partnership perspective to drive innovation. Next slide. As I said today, Hitachi is one of the leaders in terms of the industrial IoT and the vision that we have. We drive this across all of the industries that Hitachi plays in, whether that be from mobility, smart life influences around cities and governments. Industry perspective, much of what we're talking about today falls in the manufacturing environment into the industry. We also drive that in energy, energy production, transmission, distribution, and the IT environment. All of those are part of what the Lumada portfolio starts to enable. And you can see here at the bottom, it's AI-enabled smart analytics, edge to cloud, industrial IoT, and what we call smart spaces, enabling each one of these categories to be much more intelligent. We also last year were awarded the Firestarter Award from 451 Research. This drives overall innovation and capabilities as we started to see this be very pervasive throughout all of the things that Hitachi is doing. Next slide. As I said, Hitachi is a manufacturer at its core. We're the 8th largest technology company, but we're also the 24th largest manufacturer in the world. We have over 140,000 manufacturing employees, and it's critical for us to get all of those employees back to work safe and driving operational efficiencies every day. We have 200 manufacturing facilities in 20 countries. These are a key opportunity for us to be innovative inside of our company. We leverage these capabilities and this experience to drive all of our digital solutions. We have an internal capability where we can deploy new technologies and we can drive the 4th industrial revolution. On the right-hand side, you can see that our Omiko Works factory in Japan was actually just recognized by the World Economic Forum as one of these industrial lighthouses for driving new innovation, new capabilities, and this is where we start to take those, we take that intellectual property, and then we can start to offer it to our customers as we do joint innovation. Hitachi Rail, which is also on the call today, and we'll be talking about some of the innovative solutions that they've done, have really started to drive things around manufacturing quality and overall continuous innovation. But let's hear more from you. I'd like this to be interactive again, and I'd like to understand from you. So can I have the next poll question, please? From your organization's perspective, historically and into the near-term future, what is the top factor that accelerates value attainment in the digital industrial transformation journey? Again, you should see the poll window pop up in front of you. Please take a second to answer that question, and then we'll continue. Okay, Lucian, let's see the results. All right, the winner here, this one's actually a pretty good alignment here. Bringing people together, right? Bringing the processes, the technology for an accelerated vision to value was our #1 piece there. And that really talks about stakeholder alignment. As we go through the process that Hitachi Vantara approaches for its customers, you'll see that vision to value is one of our key pillars, right? As we start to drive this innovation engine, how do you get that stakeholder alignment? The second one here is operations visibility and access to critical insights. Once we start to drive this new innovation, how does that pervade across, and how do we change the mindset of folks to start to take advantage of these critical insights that are driven? And the third one here is budgets again, and organizations change management really starting to drive that innovation forward. We hear this continuously. The stakeholder alignment and the vision, the value is one of the keys to being able to unlock that budget and that transformation. All right, great. Let's go to the next slide, please. As Hitachi starts to work with customers, we want to make sure that we're unlocking and accelerating innovation. And so you can see here that we have many different things, especially as we can start to consider today's economic pressures, as well as the impacts of the pandemic to the industry. The first of those is making sure that we're truly driving transformative outcomes, not just an incremental change, but a true step change in the way things are happening. Again, in the solutions that we've actually started to introduce, building safety and enabling the folks to come and the people and their employees to come back to work through some of these monitoring solutions and advanced solutions around social distancing that we start to offer really are kind of the foundation for getting back to true operations here. The second is around that flexibility that Fabio talked about in the first presentation. Again, trying to make sure that we're nimble and able to adapt to the changes. And that includes supply chain resiliency as well as the operational efficiencies inside of the manufacturing environment. Second is around accelerating vision to value. Right? This was our number one concern. How do we get those stakeholder alignments, the people, the processes, the data all together to make sure that we can accelerate and drive the change that's needed as part of that? These include things like, how do we consider the next generation technologies? Is that something that we do now, or is it something that we do later? What if I have a lot of brownfield equipment and I need to consider how do I change the actual process of manufacturing to include robotics and systems integration from that perspective to overall drive the throughput of the factory by actually changing the factory itself? And here, a trusted advisor and practitioner is what Hitachi has become. Right? We really drive this innovation in a continuous cycle, and you'll actually see that in our next slide. Finally, scaling digital. This is the foundation of what we've done from an IT perspective. We're now taking that heritage to the IoT and the OT perspective. How do we continue to innovate and drive changes while reducing and eliminating the risk around some of these projects and really driving business agility? You can see that's all built on our foundation of what we call advisory consulting and a full managed service capability. These start to take the risk out and align the stakeholders towards overall operational value. Next slide, please. Let's talk about how we do that. How do we accelerate vision to value? How do we drive that stakeholder alignment? And our process is very methodical, yet very flexible in the way that it works. It's very agile so that it allows for this continuous process to drive. The first one of those is around understanding what are the goals, the alignments, the business, who are the key stakeholders. That all happens through this discovery capability, going out and actually interviewing key technical representatives inside of the organization. In our define and assess step, there's actually 4 different capabilities, and these include our digital envisioning workshop. Overall, how do you get stakeholder alignment? How do you weigh what are the opportunities versus what is technically possible? And then based on that weighing of those and the aligning and the making sure that all of the participants are fully aware of the value that's going to be created, how do you form a roadmap and a strategy? The second is an end-to-end digital strategy. As you've seen the IT heritage that Hitachi Vantara brings, overall, what are the changes that need to be made in the IT environment to drive a full digital transformation? The third of them is pure manufacturing operations excellence. How do we drive changes to the people and the process around manufacturing to do overall efficiency in the operation? What changes need to be made from a pure people perspective to take advantage of these new digital technologies? The fourth, what kind of changes could be made to the factory itself from a full automation perspective? These include things like simulating what robotics could do. What kind of automation could be put in place to replace some of that brownfield equipment and take advantage of space, people, time, and overall increase the efficiency? Those 4 are then brought together into a roadmap, and that roadmap leads us to our proof of value, deploy, and optimize phase. Through this alignment and through these capabilities where we've now merged each one of those technologies, we go through value engineering, understanding what true value can be created as part of executing this proof of value. And then once that's proven, again, this isn't a proof of concept, not can we do it. This is the should we do it, right? We're moving to the point of understanding how do we create value and how much value there is to be had. That moves into deploy and operationalization. We've proven the values there. We understand the metrics we need to track. And now we go into full-scale operationalization. But we don't want to end there. We want to introduce what's called the Digital Center of Excellence so that we can drive continuous innovation. what can we do next to operationally build on what we've deployed, and that leads full circle in an agile process back to the proof of value and again to deploy and operationalization. Make sure that you stay tuned all the way through the end of this session and this event. As as we talked about at the beginning, we'll be introducing and actually having a giveaway at the end around some of this process and capability that we offer. Next slide, please. Right, from our solutions perspective, we have 6 main categories here of the solutions and the full packages that we offer. The first one of those is around asset insights. This is driving overall equipment efficiency. This drives your reliability, availability, and utilization. It looks at maintenance effectiveness, maintenance capabilities, and driving the overall cost of the asset for the total operational efficiency. Second is around predictive quality. This drives overall scrap reduction, overall rework reduction, and starts to predict when changes in the process have taken place so that we can downstream see the impact to quality and stop the changes or stop the quality aspects so that downstream the impact is mitigated. Dynamic scheduling and operations optimization is a core towards the rescheduling and the recovery from process upsets. Understanding that one particular thing may lead to a domino effect in the operations. This is the ability to recover and dynamically reschedule operations to take advantage of new opportunities and or changes of the orders. The bottom 3 are actually new capabilities that we're introducing due to the pandemic that's going on and the impacts to businesses. The first one was around health, safety, and environment. This is where we drive critical capabilities from a vision or a computer automation perspective to look to see if people have temperatures when they come in. We have a thermal capability there, that they're performing social distancing. We also have capabilities to detect if they're wearing personal protective equipment and or driving safe behaviors such as lifting correctly and or staying away from particular heavy machinery or unsafe areas. Supply chain optimization starts to look across the supply chain and the manufacturing process and understands the impact that one would drive towards the other. And digital thread introduces the capabilities of connecting all the way from engineering, design, through manufacturing, all the way to the assets in the manufacturing in use. But let's talk about those in more detail. Next slide, please. So on the left-hand side, you can see how the digital thread is the key to connecting what we call the product chain. This is the engineering and all of the systems that are required to create and design and manufacture the products, intersects with the value chain. The value chain is where you're driving overall supply, capabilities, pricing, and trying to understand how much and when we can create those. That leads to the asset chain, which is where this product, service, or good is actually put into use by your customers, and then driving the overall monitoring and diagnostics and feedback into the product chain and value chain so that we can continuously improve. This digital thread starts to connect all of those data sources from ERP, CAD systems, manufacturing systems, MRP systems, all the way through the end user or the end client systems from the asset chain. In the top right, you can see a control tower, a system that looks across all of the various supply entities and start to look at the end tier supply chain to try to do optimization, both from a manufacturing and orders perspective and driving it all the way through the particular environment. In the bottom, our COVID solutions are very specific and tailored to meet the needs of today's environment. Understanding the safety of employees is critical to getting manufacturing back online. You can see here, this is a thermal solution that we have. A lot more detail on that is obviously available. Let's go to the next slide, please. I want to make sure that everyone is taking away the key things here and understands what are the next steps. As a manufacturer, you told us, right? This was part of the participant poll. Those budgets are very challenging. How do we choose to win? How can we accelerate that vision to value and leverage the capabilities that we have at Hitachi Vantara to help you unlock that, unlock the budget, unlock the key stakeholder alignments. Jumpstart the innovation factory. As you started to see, our circular or our continuous innovation process is the jumpstart to that. It is not a monolithic approach. We don't go and try to roll out the world or promise the world. We want to make sure that we're doing this through continuous innovation and driving continuous change for continuous improvements. And finally, drive value alignment. How do we orchestrate all of that information that's coming together to drive the values and understand how we can truly unlock the value that we can create together? I want to thank you for listening here, and stay tuned for exciting commentary from our customers, Toyota, Maple Leaf, and Hitachi Rail. And I'll turn it back over to you, Ed.
Thank you, James. James, while I have you on the line here, quick question. For the proof of value workshop, what kinds of outcomes are typically identified with clients?
Yeah, these actually range, right, from depending on how the stakeholder alignments or the critical objectives of a company. They could range from things like, I need to get my factory back up. I need to make sure that my employees are safe. So employee safety incidents reduction could be one of the outcomes. It could be around reducing scrap or rework or other operational outcomes, but they don't end inside of the manufacturing environment, right? These continue in the innovation drives across the floor here. And we can see things like, how do I increase targeted sales to a particular, a particular segment of customers? What's the likelihood that that customer segment would buy this particular offering? So this innovation factor that we have, and this, this workshop and this capability around value enablement can really start to trigger new ideas, new opportunities, and outcomes. But the key here, and I think Fabio called it out well in his first presentation, is around aligning the stakeholders and executives towards the value that particular outcome is going to create.
Interesting. Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Saad Kanan. Mr. Kanan is a Senior Vice President and Leader for the Innovations Practices for Digital Modernization in the Americas at Hitachi. He's been with Hitachi for over 15 years. He's an IIoT expert at many things, including practice development, strategic planning, business and IT strategy, enterprise architecture, cloud computing, and managed services. Mr. Kanan, welcome.
Thanks, Ed. Good morning, good evening, everybody. Glad to be with you today. Thanks, James, for that great presentation, and certainly congratulations on the launch of the manufacturing practice. Very excited about that. Now I would like to introduce to you guys three colleagues, three of our great customers that we've been working with on digital transformation from three different industries. To talk to you guys about the journey they have taken over the past few years and in partnership with Hitachi Vantara. We're going to start with Trevor White from Toyota. Trevor is the General Manager for Information Systems at Toyota Americas. Been working with Trevor for quite a few years now. And he is responsible for everything manufacturing from a system standpoint. As far as Toyota is concerned, Toyota has been a long-standing customer of Hitachi Vantara, and over the past couple of years, they have undertaken the digital transformation journey to modernize across multiple different areas. Certainly manufacturing is one of them. Trevor is going to talk to you guys about the journey they have taken over the past 2 years with his leadership to innovate in manufacturing. Trevor, I'll hand it over to you.
All right, thanks, Saad. I appreciate it. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Trevor White, Group Manager responsible for manufacturing and engineering systems here at Toyota Motor North America. I also have the responsibility for managing our IIoT program in the manufacturing space. So thanks for the opportunity to present today. So next slide. As many of you have already heard and have seen, there's a lot of disruption happening in the automotive space today. There's competition in the automotive space from Tesla, non-traditional competitors like Google, Apple, Uber, There's customers' expectations are changing, especially lately. Big shift to ride sharing, experience over quality, the long, vehicle order lead times are no longer acceptable. Tariffs and government regulations, especially of late, are requiring much more agility in our manufacturing space. And we need to respond quickly. We need to have a flexible, adaptive factory, and that's definitely been put to the test here in the last few weeks. Labor costs continue to rise, and we have to work differently using technology, especially in the the cobots and the 3D printing, AI, machine learning space to be competitive. This latest disruptor, not shown on the screen here, was previously shared, our new normal plant environment where COVID-19 is transforming our plants, and we're relying on IT technology more than ever. Next slide. So for us, Industry 4.0, also known as smart manufacturing or digital smart manufacturing, addresses these disruptions. This allows us to combine that physical OT and the cyber or digital twin of the IT systems introduced in Industry 3.0. The goal of our environment is to develop the complex insights from industrial big data to build predictive and prescriptive insights for machine learning and AI. For us, this includes vision systems, autonomous robots, digital picking systems, virtual reality, collaborative robots. And as a result of the recent pandemic, our new focus has really been, as James just covered, on thermal imaging, social distancing and tracing tools, as well as team member and management communication tools, leveraging real-time data and analytic dashboards. Big focus on that. Our teams, I tell everybody, our team has worked harder over the last 9 weeks than we have before this pandemic started from an IT perspective. Next slide. So the benefits of this environment include real-time, data-driven decision-making on the factory floor, which is as important now as it has ever been. Technologies like AR and VR is able to drive and bridge the cyber-physical gap. We can overlay 3D design data with standardized work when we're installing or maintaining process equipment. We can provide dojo training with technologies like HoloLens 2. We're actually doing that right now on the factory floor as part of our restart activity, where we're virtually training and retraining employees on the factory floor, especially having to work in a different environment with the social distancing requirements in place. We have real-time visualization enabled by Power BI to improve decision-making. The data is not only collected, but it's also contextualized. It allows us to correlate machine learning and deep learning algorithms to generate predictive and prescriptive insights, resulting in faster time to plan, do, check, action in the Toyota way of things, and also more robust and flexible factories. Next slide. This slide shows our IIoT platform that we've been working to build out for the last few years. Previously, our data has really been in siloed systems, and traditional plant data collection systems, the Rockwells, the Factory Talks, the active plants of the world. But we're moving to these new data lakes, which enable advanced insights through tools like Power BI. The platform allows us to evolve to more of a edge gateway capability for real-time time series data collection from PLCs on the floor. The industrial big data is collected into our Toyota Big Data platform. We call it TBDP through both local, regional, and global data lakes. We can aggregate that data up from the factory floor and combine it with existing data from our regional systems or global systems that allows us to drive insights from customers' vehicle or warranty data. The application infrastructure provides the ability to do AI machine learning modeling that we haven't been able to do in the past. So we have over 70 data models in use today, and that's growing on a daily basis. We're currently working to move all of our manufacturing data into this platform, but making sure that it's contextualized and it's organized and it's easily accessible through the common data catalog and self-service model repository. Next slide. So to date, we've proven some value through the development of several use cases reflecting a significant amount of value, especially in our predictive maintenance, analytics, both powertrain and energy. Energy has been a big area of focus for us lately. And we've been able to show that value. But as you can see towards the right in steps 3 through 6, there's a significant amount of value still to be generated through this program and through these platforms, with the big focus lately been on autonomous delivery of robots on the factory floor. Next slide. So for our IT team, our approach has been focused on production-ready technology through benchmarking with our partners, working closely with Hitachi and as one of our strategic partners, both locally, regionally, and globally. Our engineering team has developed an innovation lab in Kentucky here to help facilitate that. So we have a lot of that technologies there, and we're bringing benchmarking new technologies every day. Next slide. So in summary, our IoT program is empowering a kind of a robust, flexible factory of the future. It's optimized by the use of deeper insights from IoT and connected systems. We're able to adapt and change to changing the market and business driven, especially right now in the current pandemic. This is guided through team member empowerment through real-time data, leading edge visualization tools, advanced analytics. Ultimately, we want to reduce the time to PDC or plan, do, check, action, and improve that response time for our solutions. This enables us to provide, real-time data-driven decision making. We talk a lot about that internally. On the right-hand side, you can see new unlocked levels of data, including safety, maintenance, quality, supply chain visualization end-to-end, cost per unit reductions, a significant amount of opportunity that we're working through the program to develop. And I think that's it for me. Thank you.
That was great. Thanks, Trevor. And as Trevor would tell you, companies that have gone on this digital transformation journey are in a much better position to respond to this COVID issue. And certainly the COVID issue, we believe, is going to speed that up. And Trevor and his team have done a phenomenal job with the response to COVID and the plans of integrating that response into their overall IoT strategy. Hey, Trevor, quick question for you. What, if you were to share some of the lessons learned with the audience here as you guys started up your Industry 4.0 program enabled by IIoT, what would those highlights be?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, number one, a little bit of plug for you guys, make sure you're partnering with somebody, right? You have a good strategic partner, that you have a platform, you have an integrator that you're working with, but equally important is a strong business side leader. As I mentioned, I'm on the IT side. We have a strong partnership. I'm actually based out of our engineering center in Kentucky. So we work very, very closely with the engineering team. So that partnership is very, very important. You need to have a very well orchestrated marketing and communication and education program in place. We were a little late on that, and as a result, had to do that kind of midway through our program. But that really significantly increased our ability to reach out and touch with all of the key stakeholders that we needed to. And then, train your teams. I'm part of the MESA organization, actually on the board there. We do a lot of training through that organization, Gartner conferences like this. Make sure you stay up to date on the technology because it's changing every day. And then maybe most importantly, I mentioned it in the presentation here, but start with your high value use cases that can generate value and priority for your program. So we have over 6,000 sensors on rank A equipment doing predictive maintenance across all of our plants in North America today, and that was able to generate a significant amount of benefit for us and reduce downtime for the factories. And as a result, we were able to get additional funding that we talked about earlier to do more activity. So I think those are some of the key things for us.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Trevor. Appreciate it. And we look forward to you answering some questions later on in the session. All right. Moving on, our next guest speaker here is going to be Ron Lumsden with Maple Leaf Foods. Ron is an infrastructure architect and industrial IoT leader for Maple Leaf. And for Maple Leaf, in order to optimize operations and provide humane treatment of tens of thousands of livestock that Maple Leaf pork processes on a daily basis, they've instituted a predictive quality application aimed at improving consistency in their manufacturing process and reducing overproduction to maximize yield and product quality. Maple Leaf Foods also continues its partnership with Hitachi Vantara, looking at industrial solutions as some of their plants and exploring worker health protection in these difficult COVID times. We're very pleased to have Maple Leaf Foods as a customer and a partner. Please welcome Ron. Ron, I'll hand it over to you.
Yes, hello. Sorry for the delay, and thank you very much for the invite. So just to kind of level set who we are, because we're a little bit different as it relates to IoT or industrial IoT. Maple Leaf Foods is basically a Canadian-based food company. We have 100 years of history, with a vision and a purpose to become the most sustainable, protein-orientated food company on earth. As indicated kind of in the intro, we are leaders in animal care. We are actively working to reconnect families with the goodness of food, to improve and address food availability issues. And we're really helping to transform the food system so it can survive and thrive for the next generation and the generations to come after that, because the fact is our world is changing and our preferences are changing. Kind of a feather in the cap for us is in 2009, we were the first food company to announce that we were carbon neutral, which is really an exciting milestone on our journey. It has implications for us moving forward, and it really highlights our commitment to not only digitization, but to sustainability. From a cultural perspective, we're built on an environment around our core values, which drive who we are and what we do. Our employees thrive in an engaging, open, and completely inclusive workspace. Our employees are the heart of what we do, and their safety is critical to our success, and we invest heavily in employee safety. In fact, with COVID-19 pandemic, we don't have the kind of typical issues some other manufacturers might be facing, such as PPE equipment or sinks or things along those lines. But we do have to protect these workers, so we went through and accelerated a number of technologies that we had in the pipeline to ensure that we could protect them. So at a high level, we deployed some employee screening processes, we created some social distancing processes, we implemented fever detection systems, we actually accelerated and implemented a mass employee communication system so that we could send very specific messages that were plant-based to a very specific group of people. We're about to implement a occupancy tracking solution to further reinforce social distancing norms, and we continue to investigate tracing solutions, some that might be off the shelf, but more specifically ones with our Hitachi partners that can be leveraged in the plant. The environment inside a food production facility is very different, and it has serious restraints and considerations from a food safety and overall safety, employee safety, and the actual environment itself goes through a couple of different cycles from regular use to sanitation. And in all cases, one of the best things about this is we're sharing our findings and we're sharing the technologies we're using with other food companies, because we do want to drive employee safety and food safety across the industry, because only together will we really succeed. So with all that in mind and who we are, if we could just advance the slide, please. I want to go into a very specific implementation that we had completed started in 2018 and basically completed in 2019. So I'm going to take you through this right now. Our first in-plant IoT installation was at our Brandon Pork Processing Facility, which is actually located in Brandon, Manitoba. The facility itself spans 5 major areas, which include a barn, a dressing floor, coolers, a production floor, and shipping. Each area has different technology needs and accompanying levels, different processes, and different objectives. They also shared some similar characteristics, one being extensive tribal knowledge, well-understood processes, doing the best with what they had, and a general avoidance to change, which to be fair, basically had some reasonable explanations behind it. They know what's working, it's well understood, it's easy to train, and the concept's working, so why change it? And another common theme was the presence or absence of a supervisor can drive performance. Not necessarily surprising to anybody about that one. When the supervisor is there, things generally tend to get done better. When they're not there, you might get a little more variation. And in processes that have human input and outputs, variation is just a part of that process. Now, over the digitization cycle that we've been doing, where we've been modernizing our plants and removing paper, we've actually freed our supervisors, armed them with tablets or iPads, and effectively made them very mobile, which also has kind of increased their workload, because before they would kind of break their day down to, I'm sitting at my desk from this time to this time and I'm doing paperwork. Now they're mobile and they can do it anywhere, which has kind of added to their workload, as normal evolution of a production floor has. So if we actually take a very quick look at the top left quadrant here, the first real step was to work with our business and identify all the pain points per area that we needed to address. We classified all the opportunities: financial, compliance, waste avoidance, quality, sustainability, yield optimization. And once we had them categorized, we could actually assign a criteria to them, like high, medium, or low. So mapping it out this way allowed us to create a short list of big ticket items with high value and a high priority. So in our case, where we're not heavily automated, when you looked at uptime, it wasn't, or predictive maintenance, it wasn't as big of a driver as yield improvement would be, or quality improvement. So when you looked at predictive maintenance, they actually had well-established processes in place that their line don't experience as outages unless it's something catastrophic that can't be planned for. So this just goes to show that you got to work with your business. You have to define what their critical needs are and then adapt accordingly. Because what we first went into, the idea was very different from what actually came out. If we kind of slide over to the right-hand side of this document, the top right quadrant, oh, no, not the sheet, just the page, thank you. Here's where the rubber hit the road. We knew we had to partner with somebody, and ultimately we selected Hitachi, and we developed and deployed solutions across our production floor to achieve the goals of that area. In this case, it included things like wireless IoT sensors. So temperature is very big in a food production facility, whether it's environmental or ambient temperature, or even specific to a pot, which has water in it. Very, very, very specific, very important. We also had sensors that could perform counts, much like you'd see on an automated line where a piece of equipment passes by and a counter rolls. That was very important to them also. Cameras to assess quality and cut accuracy were critical in a success on our production floor. And we also leveraged LiDAR for bin level monitoring. We then took all of that instrumentation data from the floor. We built all the back-end elements on the Azure platform, which included stuff like the IoT Hub, web services, blob storage, SQL Azure, Service Bus, Mobile App Center, Cosmo DB, just a few of the pieces that we put together on the back end, which we're now actively collecting all this instrumentation data. And we also liberated pockets of data or ponds of data or islands of data that were already at the plant, but not effectively being used. They were considered one-off systems and couldn't drive to a big picture. And as we look at the kind of bottom right-hand quadrant of this, what we did was, in all actuality, was to build an application, and the application allowed each user in its area to attain real-time or provide early warnings about how they were doing in a day. So am I winning? Am I losing? What are my quality scores? What's my overproduction? Which in the current model, they could only look at that 24 hours later. So we improved visibility into the day-to-day activity down to real-time, near real-time, and even just enabled alerting that they could respond kind of appropriately to whatever the issues were at the time. If we slide kind of over to the left bottom corner, really what we did is we gave them the immediate tool to act and react. And then we also built all the elements we needed to into a Power BI dashboard. So you could look at the overall trending. You could now understand a bad day in one area might actually have an impact or result in another area. So you could start seeing this greater vision of the plant and how it's operating. And you could start taking the tribal knowledge, which is difficult to displace, and the I know what I know knowledge, and replace it with factual data points that could now drive improvements, whether it's a quality improvement, a yield improvement, a compliance improvement. We basically gave them a short and a long-term kind of solution for both those types of issues. And that's what we implemented. We called it POINT, which is production, I'm yapping on the second word, production operation intelligence, which is what we ended up calling the application. And it's an iOS app that we built with our partners in Hitachi. We did learn several things along this process, and we could just kind of advance to the last slide. Perfect. So some key things that we learned. Ability to trust the data. So this is challenging, especially in a production where you're using vision systems when you're doing quality inspection on organic material. We had to go through a lot of iterations and a lot of testing with the technology to get to the point where we could displace what they knew and the tribal knowledge, and they could trust the data points that they were being offered by the solution. So I was replacing that I know what I know with the technology can do it for me. So the, somewhat of the 10 or 15 years of experience you have are still relevant and valuable, but this technology can do it for us. Adoption. Adoption is definitely not just a line on a project plan. What will drive your success is the ability for you to have a plan behind it to drive the adoption of the application. Recall that you're displacing tribal knowledge, or you're displacing what people have done for many years. And it is very hard to do that. In certain elements of our Brandon IoT project, namely the barn, that was very easy because we put the application in and we removed all of the paper that they were using. In other areas where they weren't getting automatic alerts, they needed to adjust their day to start encompassing the application into the day-to-day of what they were doing. So this required us to follow up with adoption and make sure we stayed on top of it well after the project. In fact, to date now, we're in 2020, and every 2 weeks, we still have a meeting with the plant leadership team and we review adoption. Engage the people. This is critical. So you definitely need to engage all the stakeholders and at multiple levels. So there is a vision of how the plant operates at plant manager level. It is shared, but a little different as you get lower to the general manager, and it's a little different and lower as you get down to the supervisor. You really need to encompass all of these people into your design. And we did that. We actually held sessions, UX design sessions with Hitachi and our internal resources, and we built the application to fit the needs of what the plant manager wanted to see and the needs of what the frontline person or the immediate supervisor needed to respond and act to. And the last real thing for us, for any sort of IoT project or an IIoT project, is you really need to define what the goals of the project are. While it might sound kind of interesting and neat to do an IoT project for the sake of doing an IoT project, if it's not attached back to some financial or compliance or quality type metric, it really will not become, it won't drive the adoption. It won't become used in the long run. And that's what we did. In this case, we tied back some of the big bucket items to financial opportunities. And as you see with the slide on the very far right here, we set an objective and we're tracking towards that objective. And every week we're still tracking towards the objective. And what does that prove? It proves that the solution worked. We put IoT out there, we put it into a production environment, we're tracking its value, it's showing value. So the next IoT projects that are already in the hop for us, we're not worried about that. We're gonna build the same thing. Here's what I said it was gonna do, here's how much money I said it was gonna save you, or how much quality it's gonna provide you, or the accuracy improvement, and we're measuring against that. So very, very critical. Everyone's got to learn to trust the data. You got to drive the adoption, tie it to something that is real to the business or to your business, and the project will ultimately be successful. That's it for me. It was just a real review of something very practical that we had done, our first in-plant IoT implementation at our Brandon facility.
Hey, thanks, Ron. That was great presentation, and I really like the lessons learned that you guys got out of this. Ron, if I was to ask you a quick question here, you mentioned that at some point in your journey, you discovered that you needed to partner with somebody and bring that external expertise in-house.
Yes.
Why did you guys decide to do that? And fundamentally, what made Hitachi that partner?
Yeah, so great question. The reality is when we first started this in 2018, we went in there and we were working with our business. And when we understood the full breadth and scope at a very high level what we were going to do, we knew immediately that you have to reflect on yourself and take a look at the skill sets that you have internally and your strengths and your limitations. So we first took a look at, hey, I need to put something out there that's going to have stuff on the floor. It's going to have some cybersecurity elements to it. It's going to have some database elements. It's going to have some cloud elements, and it's going to have some application elements. So we quickly were able to, in each of those categories, level set where we were. And then we knew where we were strong, where we were weak, and in certain cases where we had a complete gap. And from there, it really became, a process, and it was a long process that everybody who worked with us in Hitachi remembers. But we started with 6 to 7 vendors, and we knew that we needed to pick a vendor, an integrator that could take us from top to bottom, meaning all layers through the IoT reference architecture of the framework, right from the device all the way back to the input. And that's where Hitachi, they accelerate in that area. They do have that end-to-end vision. They are able to help you, whether through partner or internally, to fill all of those elements. And that's what made them so attractive to us. And that is the answer. You need to look for a partner that when you look at this project, will be able to help you top to bottom. And that's what we were doing, a complete IoT project from instrumentation to data collection to eventual output on an application. And that's why we selected Hitachi, because they could do that.
Thanks, Ron. I appreciate that. Again, great presentation. And I think, it is very critical that whoever you choose as a partner drinks their own Kool-Aid. And no better example of that than our next presenter, Gianfranco Messina, is a digital transformation officer at Hitachi Rail out of our Italy operations. And Hitachi Rail is a great example of how our internal manufacturing organizations across the board are using Lumada technology for asset management and quality improvements. Hitachi Rail is certainly a leader in train system manufacturing and operations and has been using IoT for several years to optimize manufacturing operations and to improve quality of service for the customers and the riders. Gianfranco, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm trying to share my desktop, but maybe there are some problems. If you can
Go ahead and hit
to see it.
Now.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, go ahead and screen mode. Perfect. Thank you.
Go ahead, Gianfranco.
Okay. So thank you for this invitation. I'm very happy to participate and to share our experience in Hitachi Rail. And to all of you, just a quick advertisement, please do not copy this presentation since there are some confidential information included in it. So I really thank you in advance. Hitachi Rail is a part of the big Hitachi. We are included in the mobility business unit, and mobility is one of the biggest business unit in the Hitachi World Group. Then they are the other. The rail business is getting more and more important in the next years. We produce train. We have a full product average. We work from the tram, streetcar, monorail, driverless metro, and EV metros, regional train, and also very high-speed train, the famous Shinkansen that you know in Japan. Also, we work for some project, mainly of you are in US, on Miami Metro, Honolulu Metro, and so. And then we have other experience in US. We have a global presence. We have a plant in Italy, plants in Japan, in US, and in UK. We launched almost 8 years ago an important project of transformation in the rail. We always had the digital vision as one of the biggest enablers in our journey. And we worked on the product innovation, process innovation, and the digital innovation. Now we are achieving a lot of results, and in particular in Italy, where we focused since the beginning, all the Italian plants are considered the lighthouse for innovation for the government industry 4.0. We started from a very important thinking. This is an interview done from one of the primary consulting company across a lot of biggest manufacturing producer. And they discovered that if the companies that worked only on the operational excellence project, they obtained, yes, a result, but minimum result at plus 2% in gross margin. The companies that worked on the digital offerings, the so-called top line, so working on the features, digital and so on, they obtained a gross margin of 5%. But the company that worked on both directions, trying to getting the operational excellence with the digital solution, where we are focusing, obtained a plus 12%, not 5 plus 2, but more than that. And another important another important information is that for those companies that stopped, they received a minus 5%. So this should be taken. Then we launched our project. This is our so-called Bible, where we tried to visioning all our objectives. So we tried to work on the train of the future, launching some project on the getting more advanced solution in terms of digital of the trains. We work in the digital operation, either in the factories with robotics, smart connectivity, and so on, and all other support function, in particular for logistics, maintenance, quality, and so on. And for sure, if we work on our train, on our product, in terms of the data, we could improve the performances of our train, because of if we improve the predictivity in the train, and we will have the train that never stop, we could get the most benefit in the field operation. To do that, are needed industrial technology, are needed more simulation, tools that work to design better. And the most important pillars to sustain this kind of project are always an IT solution and a new way of managing people in terms of agile mindset, new way of working, the management of the ecosystem, and in particular to leveraging this Hitachi solution, and also new way of digital KPI in order to evaluate the return on investment on the end results. And in terms of results, these are the main results that all of you know very well on what can be achieved from such a kind of a project. But the important thing is that the results that we want to get are not only from the rail point of view. If we improve our process, if we improve our product in terms of digital solution, we could get the best. But if we work with the Hitachi ecosystem, and in particular the IT and the digital division and that work in the Hitachi ecosystem, we could improve also the system of Hitachi, and in particular the Lumada solution, in order to get benefit from both of us. So it's a mutual benefit that we can achieve across. We work always in the approach in a digital, think big, act small, and trying to escalate fast, working on some pilots and doing the best solution in order to achieve quick results from the pilots, learning from them, and then escalate to others. This is one of the vision in terms of the digital operation. So these are the projects that we are trying to achieve in our region. The red one are those projects that we are working within Hitachi ecosystem. And in terms of think big, so this is the think big, we are acting small in identification of 4 pilots initiatives that we are trying to achieve. And in particular, one of these is the so-called pilot 3, where we are working with Vantara, for the predictive quality and predictive maintenance. So our ambition is to get the 50% of reduced number of defects in our quality system, and in particular, now we are concentrating on the welding robot for the production of bogies of the train. That is very complicated in terms of safety products. And in terms of predictive maintenance, we want to achieve the 50% of the scheduled downtime in our machine, and the 50% on the overall costs. So this is the ambition of our project. How we want to do? We want to do with the value of the data. So some people and some companies in particular, based on the experience in Italy and Europe, they think that Industry 4.0 means connecting machines, ping them, seeing them from a computer. But this is just a connection. If you are not able to working on the data, analyzing the data, and getting the very value from the data and the analytics, you can get the analysis. And then there is the final step in terms of predictivity and the adaptivity in order to use those data to integrate other systems. And we are now using this data, trying to getting this data from our machine, and in order to work on the one end, the so-called describe, so monitoring dashboard and so on, and then finding some correlation among the data in order to optimize the system and to predictive, but on the other end, also we can get the benefit on the improvement of our process. This is how we are working in terms of defect solution, but we are going into technicality. This is for the manufacturing and the maintenance point of view, what we want to do in terms of predictive maintenance and the adaptation. This is important. These are 3 levels, as I told you. So the first, where the company always stop, is describe. So this is very important, how to describe, but we need to step ahead on prescribe. So once we have data, and it's important to understand the production flow, then we want to use this data to predict some model better. And the final solution is also to have a prescribed level where is the system, is the so-called artificial intelligence, then once is predicted, it can move forward to also from some solution. The results, in terms of a predictive quality, on the picture on left, you can see what is a bogie and where we are working on in terms of welding. This is a very safety system. Consider that a bogie maintain a coach, for example, one high-speed train that goes 500 kilometers at hours and brings hundreds of people. So it's a more complicated than a Ferrari. And in terms of predictive quality, the results that we are getting now based on the data, it seems that they are quite interesting, since the algorithms that we have implemented now has an accuracy of almost 90% of prediction in terms of it could be a failure in the welding machine. And we are trying to predict which kind of defect that the welding machine can achieve. I finished with as a video, real-time video on the PAMA machine, that is the milling machine where we are working from the predictive maintenance solution. This is one of the example of a Lumada manufacturing site installed on it. the PAMA is a milling machine where we are trying to working on the prediction maintenance because of in our mind it should never stop. This is how we are trying to get the data. So from the alerting, we should try to understand what's happening, and on the alerting are the real value in terms of data for the for whatever we have said. So these are the more improvement that we are trying to do again for improve our process and improve our system. Sorry for so short time, and if you have any question, please write me also offline. It's no problem to reply. I thank you for your patience, and I hope I tried to give you the passion where we are working in the digital transformation journey.
Hey, thanks, Gianfranco. That was a great presentation. Hey, Gianfranco, one common theme between you, Trevor, and Ron is the focus on outcomes. And in terms of outcomes, what is the financial value you've seen from implementing Lumada and some of the solutions associated with your digital transformation journey?
Yeah, this is a very good question. Since times, what is one of the biggest barrier in the digital transformation is the return on investment of digital, because of or if you put on the plane and you put on your table biggest investment in terms of the digital, sometimes you should bring a lot of a return on investment, otherwise nobody can approve your project. On the other hand, if you work on a very small project, lowest investment, you cannot get the real value on the process and on the system because you don't have enough of money to do that. So you need to find the balance between these. And for this reason, we tried to work on big vision and small project in order to achieve with the small, limited budget, to achieve the fast and the real solution. And based on learn on that, you can scale fast. In terms of financial value, there are a lot of KPIs that I can give you. I give you some example at the beginning, but I can tell you any other. But what is the value? Consider that, as I told you, bogey is one of the most important safety systems in your train. And from the historical point of view, any railway disaster across the world was due to the bogey. Because of the bogey failure or because broken and so on. And what is the value of a life of a people that died in a railway incident? There is no value. So what is the value of the highest quality product that you have? There is no value. As this is the important thing that people should think when try to use the data to get the benefit for their product and their processes. I don't know if I answered to your question.
Thanks, Gianmarco. That was Gianfranco. That was great. You know, if I look at all three presentations, what I got out of all of them is focus on your data and most importantly on actionable insights out of your data. Thanks to all the presenters, and Ed, back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Saad. And thank everyone for the insightful presentations. It's now time for the Q&A session, which will be hosted by Steve Garbrecht. Mr. Garbrecht is a Director of Industry Solutions for Manufacturing at Hitachi. His primary focus is helping IT managers to understand the world of operations technology and OT managers to understand the new capabilities that IT brings to the world of IIoT. Mr. Garbrecht, the floor is yours, sir.
Great, thank you, Ed, and thanks to everybody who's given presentations so far, and also all of you that have hung on for so long here during this conference. Please also stay tuned for the Q&A because we are going to have the announcement of the valuable giveaway at the end of this presentation. So I'd like to take a few questions from the audience here. You can type your questions into the question and answer box. And when you do that, please also specify who you'd like the question to be addressed to. But I can see that we have had quite a few questions come in so far. So I'm going to go ahead and start the Q&A. So the first question is for Fabio. Fabio, based on your presentation that you gave on the state of the industry, how is OpEx looking in ratio compared to CapEx in the current environment?
Okay, so for, I mean, from the perspective of the solution or in general because of COVID-19?
Because of COVID-19, I believe. Yep.
Okay, so that's pretty, I mean, pretty straightforward, the answer, because you know, because of the cash crisis, most of the companies, they try to address the need to get rid of the capex expenditure and try to focus more on the opex. So from a ratio standpoint, there is an increase in operational expenditure, which is also affecting the expenditure in IT system, because obviously, because of the, as also Gianfranco mentioned, even IT project, they will start with low budget. So it would be important to start with small abilities to set up a system as soon as possible, make sure that you can set it up and you can prove the value. And this is the focus on operational expenditure would be key to be successful instead of CapEx.
Great, thank you, Fabio.
You're welcome.
The next question is for Trevor. Trevor, based on your presentation, what's the relationship between predictive maintenance and scheduling extensions and supplier warranty requirements as part of that?
Yeah, so our predictive maintenance program is really centered around our equipment OA, availability of equipment. So we focus first on our the operational availability of our rank A equipment, basically equipment that could take the plant down for a significant amount of time. So like I said, we've got predictive sensors now on all of those rank A pieces of equipment, and we're looking at when they would potentially fail and making sure that we're doing maintenance on those or replacements based on not just the strokes or not just the time, but actually based on vibration and based on heat. In terms of quality, this kind of a separate program through the IoT program that we're working on. It's mainly around collecting data from our inspection systems, as well as our Quality 360 data analytics program, where we're collecting data from the customer viewpoint and feeding that back into manufacturing and R&D to drive, improvements or correlations and analytics to our quality data end to end. But from a manufacturing perspective, we take that data and we look at our inspection data and make sure that we don't allow a vehicle to leave the plant that has an open defect. And then again, using that data to drive decision making. So two kind of different work streams within the same program.
Excellent, thank you, Trevor. That was great. The next question I think we should maybe address to Ron. So Ron, a lot of things have come up in the industry with regard to security. So can you kind of address your thoughts about security in the network as it applied to your solutions?
So absolutely. I mean, the reality is when you're looking at any of these types of solutions, you have to build security at all levels. So if you're looking at the device level, you have to make sure they comply to the latest kind of security requirements. If you're building at the cloud, it's the same sort of thing. At the end of the day, you're going to need to protect your data. And as you add devices, which are historically not overly intelligent or built for security. So they're built to do a purpose, whether it's vibration, whether it's temperature, it's built to do that purpose. And then the gateway itself is, built to translate that data into something else. So when we looked at our model, we had already kind of implemented, it's an industry standard Cisco Rockwell OT layer network topology. So we actually added all of the IoT stuff and we put it inside there from an instrumentation level, which then solved our firewall level. And then, we could do on top of that, we put some application awareness firewalls on top of that. So we built a layered security process from the very smallest element all the way through to the cloud. So security is critical and at all levels.
Awesome. That's one of the best answers I've heard for security. Thank you. That's great. The next question I'd like to direct to James. So James, based on your overview of Hitachi and what we have to offer, do manufacturers need to establish or grow internal services groups to enable the use of SaaS in an IoT environment to become more aware of operational issues and become more efficient?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think as we start to experience what services mean, there's several different layers for these solutions to be efficient. So there's multiple answers to that. As companies evolve on their strategy, we've seen companies adopt the practice of full solutions as a service, in which case Hitachi can actually offer these end-to-end full white glove where there's no capability needed within the manufacturing customer to continuously innovate or drive the services from a, let's call it a data science perspective, or keeping the systems running. So we have a full managed service offering to actually take advantage of those and understand what that is. The other end of the spectrum is where a company wants to increase their own intellectual property into those types of solutions. And so this is where it's kind of a mix, where both Hitachi and the customer or the company start to introduce their own IP and start to manage it themselves, right? And this is where we see a really good collaboration and partnership on the services that the company or the customer wants to introduce, because they think it offers a great differentiation and they can add their own capabilities and technology. And they mix that and combine it with the packaged solutions and the customized solutions that Hitachi Vantara can offer.
Great, thank you, James. Next question is for John Franco. And John, this is based upon your experience in working in discrete manufacturing, especially at Hitachi and other locations. What would you consider a world-class OEE score, as it applies to your industry?
I think, can you please clarify OEE score?
Yeah, overall equipment effectiveness. So they're asking about KPI benchmarks, and what do you try? What would you suggest trying to shoot for an OEE score from a line point of view or an asset point of view?
Yeah. Okay. Sorry for confusion. Yes, I think that in terms of process improvement, OEE are very important, and we are trying to get this kind of visibility. But for us, that was the so-called describe. What I was trying to say, that is a describe in terms of understanding what is the status. This is very important because it's very important to monitor the status of your production. But we are trying to go behind the OEE. So when I when I say that the prescribe and predict point of view, because we want to use our data that we think it's a value in terms of production to understand the defect of our product. So we want to improve our product with the data, either in terms of a manufacturing point of view, with the data of our robot, either in terms of new features in our train. I don't know if it makes sense and if I replied to this question.
I think it does. I think it does. Trying to focus too much on individual KPIs can be dangerous. So, take more of a holistic approach to it. I think it's great. Yeah. So, thank you.
In any case, I also added in one slide our KPI in terms of digital point of view, starting from the so-called install point of view. So for us, a machine, a robot is installed when we ping, but this is the first level of digital journey. Then when you try to use this data and you are able to see this data and download it, you are at a connected level of the digital transformation journey. When you try to use this data to monitor, to dashboard, but in terms of analyzing point of view, creating dashboard and so on, you are at the analyze level. But this is not the last. The last point is the integrate. So when you have analyzed this data, and you can use the result of this data to do something else. In some industries, not the railway industries, in particular in automotive, there is the so-called machine-to-machine production. So when you use the data of a previous production to enable something else.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much for that answer. And I'd like to take one final question here, and it's directed to James. James, can you explain a little bit more about the maturity model that you've created with regards to IoT and the value of it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, John Franco actually presented one from Hitachi Rail's perspective, understanding the maturity of how can we go from connectivity and the fundamentals of gathering and implementing data through the various aspects of visualization and the first level of, I'll call it managed by exception rather than managed by walking around, right, from the facility, then moving to analytics such as predictive and advanced forms of analytics, then moving to prescriptive types of analytics, right? Each one of these steps in the model increases the value, but also increases the capabilities that are needed to make these solutions. In the top of our maturity model, you start to see where the digital thread comes into play. We call it customer symbiotic. This is where you include the entire ecosystem of manufacturing, not just the manufacturing facility itself, all the way through what we explained as the digital thread. The significance here is that you can't jump straight to a level 3, right? Looking for types of predictive or prescriptive analytics. There's a journey and a roadmap that needs to be established to really drive value towards that. And our maturity model and our capabilities meet you where you are, right? And so based on the current examples that you have, we don't require that we always start at level 1, the connectivity. We can be very modular and approach the solutions to really meet and augment the capabilities that you already have in place. So I think that's really covers end to end what we do with the maturity model and how we leverage it in our solutions.
Excellent. Thank you, James. That was great. And thanks for everybody for the Q&A that has been submitted so far. We have quite a few more questions, but we're running out of time. So what we will do is answer these questions offline in a blog and make sure that we copy everybody who registered for this event so they can get the answers. Thanks again for all of the panelists and the answers you've given. And I'll turn it back over to Ed.
Thank you, Steve. As Lucian mentioned at the opening, we'd like to extend a very special offer to those of you on the call today, as well as those of you who might view the recorded version by May 31st. If you're at the point where you're ready to take advantage of or get started on your digital transformation journey, but you could use some help narrowing your focus and mapping out priorities, you'll want to take advantage of this. And here it is. Hitachi Vantara is giving away a maximum of 5 digital envisioning workshop sessions to different manufacturers. The combination of services in this package is valued at more than $20,000. This is an opportunity to begin your digital transformation for free using Hitachi's domain and guidance from Hitachi technology experts. The workshops include interviews with your key stakeholders and Hitachi manufacturing practice consulting team, opportunities to ask questions and gain specific knowledge from Hitachi manufacturing experts, and establishing a process to get organizational consensus on key business drivers and outcomes for prioritized manufacturing IoT and analytic use cases. Remember, this is a limited time offer to manufacturing companies viewing this webinar live or on demand through the end of May. If you'd like more information or to qualify to win, please send an email to digital.value.enablement@hitachivantara.com. Again, that's digital.value.enablement@hitachivantara.com, and mention this IoT virtual conference and that you'd wish to take advantage of this opportunity. Again, thank you everyone for being here. Lucian, back to you.
Thank you, Ed, and thank you all for joining, and thank you our speakers. We would also like to announce the winner of the book giveaway that we've mentioned, the Art of Thinking Like a Data Scientist. And for that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Rudinsky, who's collected the names of the active participants in a Q&A, and she's leveraging a tool called Wheel of Names. And that's going to be the winner in a random selection. So go ahead, Karolina, hit play. Okay. So it looks like Cenk is going to be receiving this, so we'll reach out via the email you've provided. If you have a different email, please put it in a Q&A. And stay tuned for other educational virtual conferences brought to you by IIoT World. Over the next couple of months, we have the following virtual summits scheduled: accelerating innovation and new product introduction with platform standardization on June 11. We have the IIoT World on June 30th and July 1st, where we have a number of Hitachi Vantara presentation, starting with the Dean of Big Data, keynoting the exploiting the economic value of your data. There will be Bill joining there. And then we have James, that you've heard from today, on intelligent manufacturing journey and new results for application of AI in manufacturing by Mr. Gupta. And of course, save the date, July 23rd. Special thanks to our Hitachi Vantara for this educational session. Feel free to subscribe to our newsletter and YouTube channels, as well as follow us on Twitter at IIoT_world. This concludes our program for today.